Welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where our experts will share best practices on running your firm in the digital age. This podcast is brought to you by CountingWorks Pro. Let's get started.
Well, welcome to another edition of the Growth Minded Accountant. My name is Lee Reams. I'm the founder and CEO of CountingWorks and our AI-powered community site, taxbuzz.com. I will be your host today as we discuss developing a referral business around the U.S. tax code, niching down, and other strategies to help your practice thrive. Our guest today is Randy Crabtree, CPA. Since 2019, Randy has hosted the bi-weekly The Unique CPA podcast, which ranks among the world's 5% most popular programs. You can find articles from Randy in Accounting Today's Voices column, the AICPA Tax Advisor, and CPA.com, I believe. He regularly presents at conferences and virtual training events hosted by CPA associations, state CPA societies, and the top 400 CPA firms. So welcome, Randy. Please say hello.
Well, hello, and thanks for having me here. Looking forward to it.
All right, this is going to be fun. I like kind of the concepts and a little bit we've talked before we started this. I did notice something in your bio about your involvement in the stroke survivors empowering each other nonprofit. Yes. And yep. As someone who has experienced a family member having a stroke and gone through the signs and didn't realize what I was actually seeing, and luckily realized and made the right choices. And then afterwards, I'm interested to see if you want to share your background there and experience.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's a huge passion of mine, supporting the stroke survivor community and their families. That's what CO does. That's what we call it. COSSEEO, Stroke Survivors Empowering Each Other. We had just passed my 10-year anniversary of being a stroke survivor. And that's how it got me connected with CO. I was looking for an organization that would have answers to the million questions that were running through my head after a stroke. And CO was there. Ended up being a local organization, but with a national reach. And I just started getting involved with them. And a few years after them helping me, I decided I wanted to help them as much as I could, and they asked me to be president. So I had a 3-year term as president of the organization. And like I said, the organization is basically connects survivors to survivors to help answer, like I said, the myriad of questions that runs through your mind after you have a stroke.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And just 2 takeaways, and we'll get into our side. The one thing is when someone's having a stroke, it's a little slurry speech. You don't realize did they have something to drink? Is there something going on? And so to see the sign is really important, and important to jump on it immediately to the emergency. But the thing I thought was the most important part that I understood afterwards is the rehab experience afterwards. The harder you hit it, the sooner you hit it, the better the recovery is what I would say. So I definitely some great organization, and hopefully you guys are doing a lot of good work. So thank you for sharing that. And let's get started here a little bit. So one of the concepts we're talking about here today is how do you model a practice around the U.S. tax code? And then, of course, from there, it's like, well, how does that generate referrals? So let's just start with the concept and what you're pushing or talking about here. And let's open it up.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I mean, it all comes down to niche. And we're a niche provider of services. And that just happens to be tax incentives within the tax code, within the IRS tax code, and state tax codes as well. And so to do this, I didn't even know, honestly, it took me a long time to get to a point where I realized what even niche meant. And now that I know, it's like, wow, I should have known this a long time ago, because it is a lot of fun. I was a generalist for the longest time, trying to help every single client, whether it was a construction company or a hair salon or a Burger King or a law office. I was just, out there helping from a tax standpoint, all these different industries, and didn't realize that I probably was not doing as much as I could for each of those clients, because you just can't. As a generalist, you just can't know everything. you can know that someone else knows something that you need help with. But I probably didn't even know that. I didn't know that there was an expert out there doing cost seg or doing state and local tax or doing whatever these different services are. And then about 17 years ago, research and development tax credits came. They came and boy, I can't talk today. They came and seeked me out, and that I just fell in love with being able to concentrate just on one small section of the tax code. And for us personally, not to get ahead of the story, but we've expanded into about 8 different credits and incentives now. And really, it's you just have to find an area of the tax code. If you want to concentrate on tax code, as a niche practice, it doesn't have to be a tax code. It doesn't have to be a service. It could be an industry. For us, it just happens to be a service, which is tax credits and incentives. But just find an area that fits your skill set, that fits your passion, that fits the client base that you already have in place, and go from there. I'm rambling. You can.
No, I like rambling, and you've hit it. It's almost like you've watched a bunch of our podcasts before, but we talk about this often, being a generalist versus a niche player. And one of the things, the biggest challenge I see for generalists, and this is the way a traditional CPA or EA firm starts, right? You come out, you're just hungry for clients. They're going to take anybody.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you end up with 350 clients that are all kind of different. Maybe you get some police officers, for example, who are referring their friends, and you start having a little bit of a niche developing. But the reality is you have to know every industry, every new business, the background. If they're a restaurant, what are the KPIs that are important? What are the things I need to really focus on? And if you were a niche player, you would already know the questions that they're going to be asked. You don't have to do all the research. You're going to, provide a better service, but more importantly, you're going to provide it more quickly, and it's more scalable. So these are services that you can start packaging, you can start pricing differently, and you can differentiate yourself from the thousands and hundreds of thousands of generalists out there that are just dying. And they barely have enough time in the day to get their work done, and definitely not able to help their clients the way they should. And you brought that up, and I want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yep.
So as a niche player, you guys are doing R&D credits or other credits, let's say. You have a specialty and a focus that exactly what to do right away. Kind of explain that and explore it versus if you were the generalist and now you may not even be suggesting this for your clients. And if they suggested it, they brought it to you. So-and-so I know is doing this. Can you help me? How do you get started, right? So kind of explain a few of those issues.
Yeah. So as a specialist, the hardest thing when we first started was to educate our referral partners, because, and I know that's a thing we were going to talk about today, but our referral partners, for the most part, are the EA, the CPA, the tax advisor, the tax preparer, although I like tax advisor better than preparer, because, we all should be proactive when we're working on these tax returns, not reactive. And so for us, the hardest part was educating them on what the opportunities were for their taxpayers, for their clients. When we first started 17 years ago, the R&D tax credit had been around a while, but it went through some major changes right, a few years before we started. So nobody really understood R&D tax credit. So even when you were talking to the tax professionals, it was like educating them on, this is not too good to be true. This is, if we have somebody that's, developing a newer improved product or process, there is opportunities for tax savings. And then not only just educating them on what the opportunity is, building the trust in them, because we decided early on we were going to go not direct to taxpayers. As a CPA, I looked at it and I thought, okay, if somebody comes to my client and starts telling them there's tax services that they can offer them, not full tax preparation, just a small part of the tax return, I would not have been too happy to hear that. And so what we decided, and it was probably my personality, is we're going to go to the tax advisor, and we are going to educate them, and we are going to show them what the opportunities, and we want them to be the hero in the whole process. We're just there to support them, to be the background. We're actively involved with the clients, but we're not the ones that in our minds, brought this opportunity to the taxpayer. The tax advisor did. We just happened to educate them. So that took some time, both the education on the incentives and showing that we were the experts, getting that comfort level, getting that. I mean, we would get questions early on. Well, what if you refer my client to somebody else? I'm like, we won't do that. That is not, if I'm going to build this practice, I cannot have one mess up ever with a tax preparer, with a tax advisor, because that news gets around when you're in this association that all these members might be part of, and associations are a big place that we go to get new referring partners or CPA firms, EA firms. If we mess up once, that news gets around fast. If we take a client and send it to someone else, that news gets around fast. And so we had to be, I always told our people, we have to be up and above the professionalism that our clients are working with their clients, because we can't mess up ever. So that was it. It was just building the trust, building the relationships. And once that happened, we really started to take off.
All right. So you guys were running a what we'll call a generalist CPA firm at this time, and then decided, okay, did you just put your foot in the water kind of to get into the R&D, or did you go all in and create a whole new brand and start your messaging and your talking points and your collateral and the information that you needed to build that trust around that new brand? How did you decide to get started?
Well, that's a long story. So if we got an hour, I could tell you to a short. I could tell you the short version.
I need the Cliff Notes version. Yeah.
Yes, we'll do that. So I actually sold my accounting practice, my generalist practice, in 2006. I was actually doing some real estate development at the same time and decided I wanted to concentrate on that. Well, I ended up selling that 5 months later. So mid 2006, I had sold 2 businesses. I had no income. I was trying to decide what was next. Took some time off, after I realized I wasn't independently wealthy and probably needed to work some more. I just started looking around, and R&D tax credits just kept popping up everywhere I looked. And my eyes were open, but I was looking for opportunities. What are the opportunities? Where is there a need? What service isn't being provided? And I got a little smarter than I was when I started my generalist firm. And so then in 2007, we just went all in, my partner and I, and said, we're going to do this thing. I knew a bunch of tax advisors. I thought, I can go to them. I can tell them what we're doing. We spent about 6 or 7 months setting up the whole practice. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. Here's our credit model. Here's, how we're going to get bill. Here's how we're going to get paid. Here's all that stuff, and just making sure that we had everything in place. And then, so it was a complete boom, 180. Here's my generalist, sold. Year and a half later, Tri-Merit exists, and we're going to go directly to tax advisors.
And did you build up you're obviously building a brand. You're building a brand, though, that you're trying to get referrals through the professional side. Just when you approach them, I'm trying to say to my audience, okay, if you're looking to do something similar, obviously one issue is you can go direct to consumer. That's a different model. Building a relationship through associations and with other professionals. You're seeing a lot of these virtual family office type of scenarios being built out right now. It makes a lot of sense. You're the point person of your client's financial life. And now you're saying, hey, I put together the best of everybody. So I have the best QSBS stock tax attorney. I have the best, if you're selling your business, how to do that. And now I have an R&D person here. So when you're deciding to do this as a professional firm, there's a couple of questions I would have is, do you package this? So when you go to the CPA firm that is someone and they have a bunch of clients and say, okay, we're going to do a fee split. How do you communicate who's going to do what? How do you make them, trust that you're going to do the best interest for your clients?
Yeah. So for the answer one of the questions, fee split for sure. We have fee sharing arrangement on all of our services, and it varies based on the service. Some services are higher value, more intricate, that you get a higher fee for it. And so there's more ability to share a higher percentage with that. And then some of the services have become a little commoditized. And so there's more pressure on fees just from that standpoint. And so the fee sharing would be a little less. But that is an incentive. That doesn't build trust at all. Trust comes through education. For me, I personally am educating all the time. I go out and talk I'll talk tax credits and incentives all day, and I'm passionate about it, and that shows through, and I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing a tax advisor have a light bulb go off and, oh, I think I got a client that I can save $100,000 on, or whatever the number is. And if I can educate them to a point where they see the opportunity, they can connect an opportunity with a client, and their clients want that. Their clients, I mean, as a CPA, everybody in tax knows our clients want us thinking about them all day long. And they want us to constantly come up with ideas for tax saving. And so if I can educate the advisor to a point where they have more tools, more ammo to go to the client and show them that they're there on their behalf, that's been extremely important. So I educate all the time. I do webinars. I'm on podcasts like this, so thank you for having me. I write articles. I host my own podcast. I created a conference that is for the accounting profession. And just there, we're educated on ways that we can run better practices. How do we work less, make more, be more efficient, have that mythical work-life balance that some CPAs don't think it exists. It does. You can get there. And so just education, anything to help the profession, even if it's not tax credits and incentives, puts us in a spot where it's like, okay, they're there for us. They're there on our behalf. They want to see us be successful. So education to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah. And we always talk about when if accountants aren't natural salespeople. So, and if you're trying to follow some, what you read on Google on how to close a deal, it really comes down to, if you're in a niche, your experience is going to just feed through so that the prospect's going to know it right away. If you're in a niche, you're going to have other clients who you could write case studies about. They're going to leave referrals and testimonials about you. And a lot of this does the selling for you, so that if you really just are educating and providing, information on how this works, why I'm the best solution for it, that kind of social proof throws, it really helps on the conversion. It makes it so you're just signing people up. So I'm going to go a little bit following kind of what you're talking about and try to apply this to other professionals in my network. So we're talking about niching down. So you obviously jumped in, you sold your practice. You said, let's focus on this. You had a game plan, you worked on it, you worked on educational material. So if you were advising another CPA firm that, you're right, doesn't have work-life balance right now, they are just dying with the amount of work they're doing. How would you pick the niche to focus on, and then B, choose between going consumer direct or go pro to pro, peer to peer?
Yep. And that last one's going to be based on the service or industry you want to work on, I think. So we'll expand on that. But first is just do it. Just start to develop a niche. I mean, and you don't have to jump all in like I did. That is not the norm. I don't think that's the way to do it for most firms. I think what you need to do, and you said it before, once you start a firm, you just take on anybody that's going to pay you. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you need revenue. You want to build this firm. But at some point in time in the life of that firm, you realize that you enjoy working with one client over another, or you enjoy one service over another. And maybe you just love doing partnership returns, which I don't, but maybe you love doing partnership returns.
Someone has to.
Someone has to. They seem to get more confusing all the time. And I don't do returns at all anymore. But when I hear it, it just sounds confusing. But maybe you like that. Maybe you like state and local taxes. Maybe you like the food industry. So find an area where if you get a phone call and you cringe when that client calls, that's probably not the niche that you want. If you get a phone call and it's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to talk to that person, that's what you like doing. That's the one that you enjoy. And so what you want to do is, like I said, it's really tough to jump, all in and change everything. But what you can do is just the next client, start educating on fine dining restaurants. That's what you like. You like to go out to the fine dining restaurants. You're passionate about that. You enjoy it. You have a couple clients. Start doing a podcast. Start writing articles. Start posting on social media about that industry and build it out that way. And it doesn't have to be immediate. You get the next client, you try to get in that profession, that industry, that service model, whatever your niche is. Doesn't mean you even have to replace other clients, but if your capacity won't handle it, well, you have to also learn how to offboard a client too. Because if you're getting the clients you like now, the clients you love, the industry you love, well, there may be a point in time where you have to just, even if they're a good client, you may just have to say, sorry, we're going to help you find the right provider, the right service provider for you. And offboarding skills, I think, are extremely important when you're building a niche as well. And so that I would just find that area where you're passionate, where you enjoy, where when the phone rings or the email comes, you get excited for that client and start to, and that may just be a demographic too. Maybe it's a husband and wife owned business. Maybe it's, father-daughter owned businesses. Maybe it's, woman owned business. I mean, there's just a demographic that you like. Start concentrating on it.
And what's nice about it with the digital age, as Randy's been saying, is you can create, if you don't want to, you could create a niche website. So you could create a second website. And let's say you go all in on these talking points and you really narrow the focus. So when you develop content around these topics, there's much less competition. So a generalist, you're competing against everybody. Then it becomes a local thing or perhaps a review thing, but it's very hard to stand out online. You're going to spend a lot of money. But if you're niching down, and let's say you're doing the food industry, like the father-daughter businesses, whatever, those are keywords, long tail keywords is what we talk about. But you could create content around those. Video is a huge deal right now, obviously podcasts as well. But YouTube's going to find it. Google's going to find it. You're going to start getting index for it. People go to your website or your landing page and you have visuals of the father-daughter, business owners and entrepreneurs, and they're going to go right away, this is speaking to me. And then you take the knowledge that you have, that you've benefited from specializing, right? And you're going to be able to service that client much faster when they onboard. And they're going to trust you more, and they're going to trust you probably right out of the box versus kind of feeling out, where I'm going. So I think that is great advice, which kind of leads me to part of the discussion is, okay, now you're in this niche, you've decided where you want to go, but you keep mentioning that it's really going to drive referrals. And there's a couple ways to look at that. If it's actually, why don't you expand on that? So how does that drive more referrals by niching down or being a specialist?
Well, for us, like I said at the beginning, we decided we're going one to many. We're not going straight to taxpayers. We're going to the CPAs. That's how we started. And then we expanded from there. Okay, we're not going to, and I say CPA generically, EA, CPA, tax advisor. I'll try to say tax advisor from now on. But we went straight to them. And then what we determined is, we have a lot of these tax advisors we're working with that are parts of associations. So let's go to the association and let's see if we can become, their preferred provider for their association. And so now, we're going from one to many, 3 levels. In the association, we've become preferred providers for probably, I don't even know, 8 to 10 different associations where we're constantly at their events, their conferences. I speak on webinars for them a lot. And from that standpoint, it just snowballed to the reach of potential users of our service. And that has allowed us to grow tremendously. I'll brag for a second, but the last 2 years we've been listed in Inc. 5000 fastest growing privately held companies in the US. And I think if we went directly to the manufacturer, that wouldn't have happened. The fact that we've gone to this model where we can get to many with one education event or one speaking event or whatever, it's helped us a lot. And then just to even expand further, we were R&D tax grids only for the first 5 years. And I fought and probably, timing was probably right, but I may have been slow on this. I fought a little bit doing anything else because I want to be known as the expert in R&D. When people think Tri-Merit, they're going to think R&D. They're going to know that we're there for them, and our people aren't going to work on anything else but R&D. Well, that's fine, but we kept getting asked, what other services can you deliver? And I'd be proudly nothing. R&D is what we do. I finally realized after about 1,000 times of people being comfortable with us and asking us if we could do other services that, yeah, we probably should. We've got the built-in, a client base already. The tax advisors are there. They already are comfortable with us. They would ask us for like cost segregation or, some energy incentives or whatever it is. And we decided it was time. Let's go to the next service. And boom, we already have the processes in place. We have the procedures in place. We have KPIs. We have all the tools in place. We just need to build up a staff for this next service, because I'm not going to dilute my R&D knowledge with this other knowledge. The other thing, though, from when you expand from one niche to another, and we didn't go from one niche to another. We're specialty tax. We added a niche that uses the same skill sets of the people we're hiring already. R&D tax credits are engineering-based incentives. We added cost segregation. That's engineering-based incentives. We added 178D and 45L, some energy incentives, and some renewable energy tax credits, energy-based incentives. For the most part, when we add a new line, it is engineering-based somehow. There's been a few one-offs, though, in addition.
Yeah, and which makes total sense. And then I think this concept too of you being biz dev, you're not the actual taskmaster anymore. So you're building a team around these new services. And let's explain kind of the challenges. So and I see some of our most successful firms. I have one client who has about 50 total partners and staff. The two main figureheads, so to speak, I would say they're thought leaders. They're out there talking. They're the relationship people. But the reality is they're not doing the work. And you're handed off. But they have created the processes in place, the way I trust you when you get onboarded, and the way that works. So what would be your advice for another CPA or enrolled agent who's thinking about doing this as well, but they're held back where I am so busy now, I can't handle any more work. You're actually kind of saying there's a better way to work. So give some advice on what you went through to build that out, and then to feel comfortable of letting go and letting people do the tasks and the processes and just basically managing the flow versus actually doing all the work.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I look back at that, and I made mistakes, lots of mistakes along the way, for sure. And I look back and I think, okay, I became managing partner of Tri-Merit just because I was a CPA. I came out of being a generalist. My partner who I started with was an engineer. He's younger. He's not the role for managing partner I am. And so I fought for a long time that I really could do something else. I'm really more passionate doing something else. And so what I've learned over the years, that took me a while, but I would recommend this to everybody: delegate, collaborate, well, and automate, obviously. And people fight automation way too much. You got to stop that. That what's in your mind you think is this short-term pain or this pain of automating, you ignore the fact that the long-term gains be so great. But for me, it was more, we have people do automation. For me, it was more that delegation part. I thought I had to do everything. I thought I had to be the one in charge. I thought that, and I look back now and boy, that is not my skill set. I am not the process, the procedure, the KPI person. My partner, who I started the firm with, he is a genius with that stuff. Took me the longest time to realize that he was great at that stuff, and that's where his passion lied. And then, my passion is on this, educating. Boy, I wish I would have known that years ago, but I really believe timing was perfect every time we made a change. And so that's what I say, 7 years ago, I learned to let go. I learned that we have really good people, and I don't have to. Well, I never micromanaged it. That was never a thing. But we didn't have to ever micromanage anybody. Just give them the skills, let them do it, give them the freedom to. I'm a big proponent of anytime, anywhere work. Get your job done when you want to get it done, where you want to get it done. And so that's, I think, a key thing too. But delegation is part of that. You have to trust people when you delegate, but I honestly don't do anything anymore. I just
Well, you're
go
doing
out and
something. I
educate.
mean, yeah, you're doing something. And what I think this leads into also is this becomes a scalable business versus a capped, I'm billing hourly. There's only so many hours in the day. You can do the math. I'm capping my income. I'm capping my profits when I
Right.
do that. And when you can set it up where you're out there building out the funnel and it's just a pipe that's coming in, it can grow as big as the funnel grows. I mean, you just need to add to your teams. If you have the processes in place and automation, we were talking before, our CountingWorks is big into automation, and we're using a lot of our artificial intelligence to automate more and more tasks. We see some things as kind of co-pilot things, but also when I say automation, if you could cut, an hour, 2 hours just on onboarding clients
Yep.
times X number of clients, it gets substantial. And why is it then? We're going to go off a little bit. Why is
No,
it
that's
that
fine.
accountants, tax professionals are so afraid of, or why they're so into their old ways of doing things, the paper-based ways, and they're afraid of automating and just really allowing digital transformations?
Yeah, this is I don't know how to say it, pet peeve of mine. This is a passionate area of mine. I'm no expert when it comes to automation. I'm so fortunate to know so many people in this profession, and I get to talk to people all the time, and I get to hear the really cool things they're doing. And I'm seeing it often on this more modern, younger millennial owned firm. And my generations are off. I'm whatever the generations are, younger than me, being a boomer, that are doing a lot of this automation and figuring out ways that they can get that work-life balance back with automation. And it's just crazy that people avoid it, that people don't want to do it. And I read an article recently. I think I was talking with a psychiatrist, psychologist. I always get those wrong. And he was telling me, was it she? Because there's a couple I was talking to recently. Whoever it was, they were telling me that our brains are just wired this way. Our brains are wired, and it's not just the accountants in general, but everybody are wired to fear the short-term pain, fear that, hey, there's change. I'm fearing that because it's I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to avoid it. I'm not going to do it. And our brains don't go to that next level of, yeah, but look at how much more efficient we're going to be once we do this. And it's just almost innately ingrained over years of evolution that this is the way we look at things, and our brains just avoid it. We just have to practice doing changes, and we have to practice it, I think, in small steps, because we see that large picture and it's like, nope, not doing that. I'm not going there. If we just see, oh, I can make this one little change here and that's going to save me a minute, great, do it. Then do the next one. Then do the next one. And then, before you know it, you're going to go from 70 hours a week in tax season down to 50 hours a week in tax season. And then you're going to be extremely, extremely happy. And so that's the thing. I think it's just the way our brains are wired.
Yeah, I had given you the example before we started where here's like a 3-step automation. Send out a proposal, digitally now. Have it so you have a template or you're having AI write the proposal for you. You can send it to your client. They can pay you up front. Hopefully you're packaging the service.
Yep.
Let's say this is tax planning strategies. Quarterly, I'm charging, $4,000 a quarter. The client then signs off. A good automation would immediately send that engagement letter for tax planning services. It's already, the language in it is personalized to that client. They then e-sign it. You didn't have to do anything. You already did it once. It sets up. Once they sign it, now you kick off that intake form. So now you can automatically, instead of spending the time in the beginning of an interview, have a lot of that data already in your hands. And now I've effectively just took 3 things that I'm doing manually, or however you're sending invoices or wherever, not getting paid, chasing, people that owe you money. But now you've just saved 30 minutes or more.
Yep. Yep.
And that would be a good start. And then you could go obviously on and on from um, from there. So if you start getting people to believe in this and slowly but steadily do it, you had talked about ways that you can kind of supercharge, boost the referral networks. And explain to me how you do that. How do you get it so you get some more velocity versus, I'm only getting occasional referrals here or there. What are the best strategies there?
Yeah, for us, our marketing is huge. We have a 7-person marketing team, 8-person marketing team, and just getting that constant word, not being a pain. Tax advisors don't want to get an email from you every 5 minutes. That's not the type of thing. But just putting out this informative marketing that's going to be helpful to them. And so for us, our marketing team is just so dialed in with what's going on with our client base. What are the education materials that we need to get to them? I host a webinar twice a month. Even during tax season, we get a decent amount of people, that come onto these because it's always educational. It's always helpful. We're actually doing one the end of this month on marketing for accountants. And, it's a weird time to do that right at the end of tax season, but it was like, you know what, let's just get some information out there for them. I did one 2 weeks ago on this new tax bill that who knows it's going to pass or not, but I think we had 1,200 people or 1,500 people sign up for it because you're putting out good information. And then once that happens, once you get somebody interested in talking to you about something, well, now the fact that we've added other services, not just R&D, we've got, you mentioned about the packaging or bundling or something a little bit earlier. We often now can offer 4 services or 2 services or 3 services to every client that comes in because they're a manufacturer, but they own a commercial building and they are hiring people left and right. There's all 3 of those things. There's about 5 different incentives just on those 3 words there. And so from that standpoint, they be able to offer more, have more opportunities for revenue streams has come out of the fact that we've expanded from the one niche. We're still one niche, specialty tax, but the one vertical or whatever you call it within that niche to these multiple verticals.
Yeah, I laugh when I hear, an accountant firm say, well, we don't do marketing. And it's like your client retention, the amount of money that you can command when you're, just doing your regular billing, the awareness factor, the velocity of the inbound referrals that you get. Obviously, if you're doing it right and attracting people through a marketing team, you got all these different leads coming in. And then it comes down to even the value of your practice when you go to sell it. If you're not automated, if you're not digitally enhanced, if you don't have a real brand, the multiple you're going to get when you exit is much smaller. So it's wild. I'm glad that more people are talking about marketing for accountants. And I mean, some of our clients, we had a client who shared they had 800 inbound calls from just how well we got their Google business profile ranking on search. And it's like, that is a lot of leads.
Yep.
And you don't need marketing, then you can start picking and choosing. And if you're niching down, again, you don't have to relearn every client as they come in, which I think is great. So which leads, go ahead.
Sorry, because what you just said is really cool. So the marketing standpoint, especially when you're niching down, the leads just come to you because they see that knowledge. They see you're the expert. I've got some good examples. You may know some of these people, but Brandon Hall, real estate CPA. I mean, he has 200 leads a month coming in and picks 25 a month or something like that, just because he's niched down so far. A good friend of mine who unfortunately passed away last October, but Josh Lance was a niche in craft breweries and digital agencies. He had 2 niches, but he said they kind of made sense together. And he was telling me that the revenue that they get per client is probably 3 to 4 times what someone else gets that because we're the expert, because we're the niche. And so, yeah, niching down and showing that value and marketing all tied together, and you're going to be more profitable just because of that.
Yeah, and it comes down to perception too. So, if I'm looking for a new advisor and I'm in the entertainment business and I find, some entertainment CPAs, my perception is they know something that generalist, still in Burbank, right? Still in the, the entertainment capital of the world, but and they offer services to the entertainment business, but I guarantee you they're not able to charge what that specialist is. And that's the game changer, why it's so important to niche down. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. I have one last question. So now, when you kind of got into this, but not totally. So let's say I do this niche and I'm doing the microbreweries, for example, and all of a sudden I have everyone coming to me. I don't know what to do. I'm turning away business. I'm putting people on waiting lists. But what if I needed to attract more talent? My argument is someone would rather work in a niche business than a specialist, because you know why? It's easier for them to do their job as well. What is, how do you think CPAs, EA firms differentiate themselves to get more talent and attract talent? Because right now, obviously, we have the boomer retirement age. Your partners and your age people are selling and getting out, and there's not enough people replacing them. So kind of what is your insight there?
Yeah, so this is another area I love talking about. So we as a company, we're about 80 people right now. We lose somebody voluntarily leaving us like once every 3 or 4 years. I mean, people don't leave. And I think it's because of that, what you were just saying. They become an expert. They take pride in becoming an expert in this one area. But for me, it's even deeper than that. You kind of alluded to it before. Hey, we just keep doing the thing the same way we've done it forever, the Sally method, same as last year, because, we make decent money in accounting. Why should we make changes? We're doing the billable hour because I know the value I'm coming in. Billable hour kills me. I think that's awful. And I think we have to get rid of that for sure. But that would be a tangent. I'm not going to go on that tangent now. I'm going to stick to this. The bottom line is, when you're looking for people, just look for good people, and the role will find them too. Now, I know if you're a 2-person shop, that's not as easy to do. But when you bring somebody in, don't pigeonhole into a spot just because that's where you hired them. All our people are great, but some of our best hires came in as one role and noticed that their passion was over here or over there in a different area. And we allow people to be themselves, to share whatever they want, to ask questions, to tell me I'm doing something wrong. That's fine, because we're better. So for me, it's valuing the person, not the job title. If you find a good person, think outside the box with this. Two of people that have been with us for almost 14 years now, I met at the gym I was working out in. They both were just finished college, and I just saw they were great people, hard workers, great communicators, all these things. And so one was training me, the other was training my son. I ended up hiring them both. One now is a partner in the firm, and the other is head of our inside sales team. And so that's not the roles they came in at, but that's the roles that they found when they were in here, and passion. And again, it's not, if you're 4 or 5 people, it's not as easy to have that opportunity, but you can still value the person and not the job title. You can, when we hire a new person, and I think this is, and I'm not that, it's because of me or anything, but the bottom line is, when we hire a new person, my assistant automatically schedules a call with me and them a week or 2 after they start. I don't really tell them I'm calling. They might not even know who I am. I mean, honestly, because I'm not part of the whole hiring process. But I just want to talk to them and ask them everything about their life, nothing about the business. I just want to get to know the people. I want to let them know that I'm very interested in what they do. I've learned out so many things by asking questions, of our head of marketing is this unbelievable good artist who has like stuff hanging in galleries. One of our partners, when he came on, I found out he was used to be a professional motocross racer. Someone else plays the fiddle in a band. You hear all this stuff about him, and it's just valuing the people. So for me, if you do that, if you get to know the people, if you enjoy having fun with them, hanging out with them. And one last thing on that, and then I'll stop because I know I'm rambling. Don't hire clones of yourself. If everybody was me, we would go nowhere. I mean, we'd be really good at talking about things. We would get nothing done. And so make sure
a lot of podcasts and webinar content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the keys, I think.
Something you just touched on it, and I'm going to relate it to having a peer-to-peer referral and talking about like your personal issues or learning about somebody. What we have found is when you make that referral, that pro to your firm, for example, and you say, "Hey, this is Lee," and put I'm working with him for 5 years. His daughter plays water polo. He's passionate about the sport. He loves it. He lives in, Orange County, blah, blah, blah. It makes a big way just to bring people's defenses down immediately and then just open up and just kind of start that connection. And when we talked about building trust is one of the most important parts, that is a nice little takeaway from this that, and I assume you guys have a formula in place, but that's something to think about if you are doing any sort of peer-to-peer referral, or if you're niching down and let's say an organization is referring a restaurant owner to you. If they could integrate that in the referral, the chances of you converting that to a client are much higher. Do you see something similar?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's that, and then even just figuring out what role people could do too, because if you know somebody's lead singer in a band, that might be the person you want out doing a presentation because they're comfortable in front of people and that kind of thing. But yeah, if I can also tell them that, hey, yeah, and Lee's the lead singer in a band, it's really cool, and he's in your area, you should go see him sometime. Yeah, I mean, you made it personal now. I think that's huge.
All right, perfect. I appreciate your insight. I think you're starting to get. I mean, what we spoke about today. Obviously, if you listen to our podcast, you've heard this before, but I love hearing other people just keep saying the same thing and here's a success story. One of the fastest growing firms. I think it's really important just to take that leap. If you want to go slowly, we have at CountingWorks, we have strategies. We have a lot of clients that are doing that. We have a lot of clients that are niching down and are just scaling like crazy. It's awesome to see. And that's why we keep talking about this. So if someone was interested in, and they might have some R&E clients or other clients in the manufacturing space that might fit for you, how would they get a hold of you and how would they work with you?
Yeah, so best spot is looking at our website. It's try-merit.com. There's a meet the team, and there's also just info at try-merit.com, and that'll get directed to the right person if you have a question. You can reach out to me. I'm really bad at email, but my assistant will get it to the right spot as well. So if you see my email on our website, and you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn too. Our marketing team seems to have me all over LinkedIn.
Which is awesome. A little just insight. The Meet Your Team is the #3 most visited page on your website. How many professionals do not, or they have a generic Meet the Team, or they don't show their personality? If you want to supercharge your conversion rates immediately, make it an effort to get professional photography done, or use AI. I don't care, to make you look professional. But write a really effective personal bio and have an effective team landing page. You will double, triple, quadruple your conversion rates. So Randy didn't know it. He just gave us another takeaway. That's perfect. So I appreciate your time. It's awesome what you guys are doing. I love the fact that you took that leap, and a lot of people don't. And I appreciate your time here. Hopefully our audience will, be inspired and kind of follow your lead and jump into the niche side on their own. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee, for having me.